If you're talking to students and you're providing first aid, then that is 1000% clinical experience. Now, I'm guessing part of the heart of this question is, welcome to the Old Pre-Meds podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray. And the Old Pre-Meds podcast is brought to you by Mappd.com, Mappd.com. I'm excited for Mappd. It's a technology platform that I've wanted to build forever, and it's finally coming. It's coming soon, the fall 2020. If you're listening to this in the future, many months into the future, it will hopefully be out. Again, Mappd.com. What is it? It's not an application tool. A lot of people think it's an application tool. It will 1000% help you with your application because all of the information that you have gathered through your pre-med process will be in Mappd. And we will have prompts for you and little diary entries for your activities and your courses and everything that you've done so that when it comes to writing your essays for your application, you'll have all of your information there. You'll have GPA trends so that you know how you're doing. We'll be able to provide you feedback through the system to let you know how you're doing. If you should look at doing a postbac or a master's program or delaying your application, you can track your Mcat practice tests and put in your real tests and so much more. Mappd.com, as I'm recording this on June 29th, the price is going up. The pre-order price is going up on July 1st. So if you're listening to this as the episode comes out, I'm sorry, but go check it out. The actual price will actually go up again when this software comes out. So you can still get a better pre-order price right now if you go to mappd.com, Mappd.com. Go check it out. All right, we have a great question today from the Old Pre-Meds, or the non-traditional pre-med forum over at premedforums.com. Our question today is from a student who's asking, is a school nurse considered clinical experience for the purpose of a medical school application or medical school admission? Now, my general feedback for these types of questions, when a student asks, is this considered clinical experience, with this being whatever it is, right? Obviously, in this specific situation, it's a school nurse. Is being a school nurse considered clinical experience? And my general answer is, I don't know. I don't know based on the title alone. As a school nurse, did you only do administration stuff, right? A student would come in and you'd go, you should go home. Or you should go to the hospital, or right, just from an admin standpoint, or were you taking temperatures and putting on Band-Aids and rinsing out wounds and doing first aid kind of stuff? The title itself doesn't tell me anything. What you did is the key to whether it is clinical or not. So as a school nurse, if you're talking to students and you're providing first aid, then that is 1000% clinical experience. Now, I'm guessing part of the heart of this question is, well, I'm at school 8 hours a day and only 3 students come in that take up 2 hours of my time. Right? How do I time all of that? And I think you just time it like normal. If you were there for 8 hours, then it's an 8-hour day, and that's 8 hours of clinical experience. It's very similar to being an EMT, right? You're not expected to stop and start your clinical experience time only when you're out on the ambulance actually doing EMT calls. It's very different than if you're like going to a sleepaway camp and you're a camp counselor, you're a nurse at a camp. Maybe that's a little bit different, but you're not expected. Let's do a different one, right? You go to Guatemala for a mission trip, and a lot of what you're doing is clinical experience. You're not counting the time that you're sleeping as part of your total hours. So this is a little bit different because it's a very on again, off again type experience, and you're not expected to go, well, only 2 hours out of the day on average were considered clinical, and so I'm only going to put those hours. You still put the full amount of hours on there. That's what I would look at doing. So is a school nurse considered clinical experience? Sure, it definitely can be, depending on what you were doing. Now, I want to make this distinction because it happens all the time. And again, this is something that Mappd will be able to provide students as you're entering your information. If you enter clinical experience, and you can put it's paid clinical experience, volunteer clinical experience, whatever it is, remember, from a clinical experience standpoint, you don't have to have volunteer clinical experience. When we make the distinction between volunteer experience and paid experience, it's not a distinction of clinical experience. If you're a nurse, right? Let's leave out the school nurse part, right? If you're a nurse, you've been a nurse for 8 years, and now all of a sudden you want to go to medical school. You don't need to then go get volunteer clinical experience because all you have is paid clinical experience from being a nurse. That's not something you have to do. The volunteer side of it is, if you have 8 years of being a nurse, that's amazing clinical experience. There are a lot of medical schools that also like to see volunteer experience, not specifically volunteer clinical experience, but just volunteer experience. So students will kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, and get volunteer clinical experience so that they're getting two of those kind of check boxes marked off. But if you have plenty of clinical experience, paid clinical experience, you don't also need volunteer clinical experience. But maybe you should look at getting volunteer experience, whether that's Habitat for Humanity or working at a soup kitchen or whatever that may be. A lot of schools like to see that you are selfless in the time that you have allotted throughout your day, and you're volunteering that time. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, go check out mappd.com, mappd.com. By the time you're listening to this, we're at our last stage of pre-order pricing. The software will come out soon, and the price will go up to its regular price of $79.99 a year or $7.99 a month. So when you sign up for the year, you get 2 months for free, basically. Like I said, it's not an application tool. It's not just a fancy spreadsheet. This will be able to track your progress, give you feedback on your progress. For instance, right, if you set a date of applying to medical school in June of 2021, and based on the stuff that you have entered, we can go, hey, Sally, you're missing shadowing. You don't have any shadowing experience. Here's why you need to look at shadowing and why it's important. So many students are applying to medical school without shadowing, without clinical experience, applying to medical school with terrible GPAs, with not great Mcat scores. And based on what you enter into Mappd, we'll be able to provide you feedback to say, hey, maybe you should delay a year. Like, let's not waste a couple $1,000s on an application because you're not ready. The software will be able to guide you with a lot of that. And we have lots of plans for the future, being able to track all of your secondaries and how long you're taking to turn around, and be able to edit all of those inside of Mappd. We'll be able to take your information that you're putting into Mappd and share it with your pre-health advisor or mentor or whoever, so that they can give you feedback on everything, right? We're building it out to be a communication tool for pre-health advisors and for pre-med students. So lots of fun plans. Again, mappd.com, mappd.com. Have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the Old Pre-Meds podcast.